Tell me, what's convection? What's it got for the definition for you? Did you find the definition in there? Tell me what the definition is. We'll start with that. Good. So liquids heat and cool through convection. And the key to convection is circulation. When I think about what convection is, I'm thinking about the circulation of a fluid. So heat transfer through circulation of a fluid. Okay, it's worth noting, this is only for fluids. Only fluids do convection. Okay, you can't do convection with metals, can't do convection with solids, you can only do it with liquids and gases. Okay, and they only do convection to heat up themselves. If they heat up other things, they heat up other things through conduction. Okay, so the reason why I get cool in this room is because of contact with the air. But the reason why the air is the same temperature is because of convection. Okay? So convection is just for the fluid and how the fluid works. Okay? So, how does this work? So, higher temperatures. So, higher temperature fluids are less dense and rise, while lower temperature fluids are more dense and sink. And the best example of this one is boiling water. If boiling water only heated itself through conduction, it would take forever to boil. Because the only water particles that are touching the hot part are the water particles on the bottom of the pot. So, if you did it only through conduction, those would heat up, and then they'd have to heat up the next layer, and 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 it would take forever to boil water. That's not what happens. What happens is you've got your pot of water. Okay? And it's on the burner, on the stove, with purple fire apparently. Okay? And that heats up the lower level. So that makes the lower level of water hot. Hot is less dense, so it rises. Up at the top level, you have colder water. That colder water sinks. And then that colder water gets heated up by the pot, which then causes it to rise. And the cooler water, that's near the top now, sinks and gets heated up. And you continue this process until all the water is the same temperature. That's why if you look at boiling pots of water, they are moving and circulating and flowing. It looks like there's a water pump inside of it, and that water pump is actually physically moving the water. It's conduction. You've also may have heard of convection ovens. Convection ovens do the same thing. They circulate the air, and that's what cooks the food. So there's not a direct heating source. There's not like a bright coil or anything like that. Air fryers are similar. Okay? So it's not through a direct thing. It's through an indirect circulation of air. Okay? Again, this is how fluids work. This is not for solids. This is how fluids conduct heat. Okay? Only fluids do these. Okay? We talked about the heat in the house. Hayden, tell me about B. Tell me about this blowing air business, because this is a good one that people ask me about all the time.
So when you blow air out of an arrow, like your mouth is a small opening,
yeah,
it expands and so it cools down.
Yep. So faster moving air. So when you blow air through like a narrow opening in your mouth, Okay? Faster moving air expands. When it expands, it cools, right? Hot air rises. When it's less dense, it cools up there, and then it'll sink again. So faster moving air is less dense. We talked about in the last unit, we said when particles go through faster, the density or the temperature lowers. Okay? So faster moving air expands and cools. Slower moving air does the opposite. And warms. That's why when you want to warm up your hands when they are cold, you open your mouth more and you okay? You blow into your hands, but you blow into your hands slower speed air. If you're hot, okay, you touch something hot, you're trying to cool it, or you're cooling off a cup of coffee, you blow quicker on it, and that enables the air to cool. So this is kind of interesting thing. It's using the same idea of convection, of this heat transfer through a fluid, this idea about expanding or contracting air. So that's a question I get all the time in physics, and it's an interesting one there. Okay. Any questions about convection? Yeah.
I have a question about AA. So,
Yeah.
if you're upstairs,
Yeah.
the vents are on the floor upstairs,
Yeah.
and it's summer,
Yeah.
would it not circulate like at all?
No. So good question. It still will work. However, you'll frequently see the the bottom vents on the downstairs and the upper vents on the upstairs, but not always. But yes, it'll still work, mostly because the pressure is pushing the air upward. But it's not as efficient as the air coming in from the bottom, because you have to maintain a high enough pressure to do it. But you have to have high pressure to get it up there anyway. It'll work, but you just have to be careful with it. Yeah, but it does work. That's a good question. Yeah, because especially like apartments, especially old ones, you'll see that, like the bottom floor vents. I know my old house had the bottom floor vents. Okay, good. Any other questions there? All right, let's knock out the last one.